It's me.
It's us. We're here.
We are back with another episode of It's Not Complicated. And we're just going through the Bible, friends. We're in the Word. We are doing it. And we're glad that you're here with us, too. I am Reverend Jenny Williams. I'm the senior pastor at Central United Methodist Church, here with my two favorite co-hosts.
Oh, I'm Virginia Brown. I'm the college pastor and director of the Wesley on the U of A campus.
And I'm Chase Burns. I'm the executive pastor at Central United Methodist Church, and I have a surprise because I just got back this morning.
Trip gifts! Yes, trip gifts! Did you get at the airport?
Trip gifts! And I'm going on like an hour of sleep, so I'm just here to be here. So
he's here for fun.
So you just pick right or left, or just point to one.
I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's TV.
Woo! Cute.
Yeah. Cuba.
We had a team that went to Cuba for a week to work with the Iglesia Metodista in Cuba, and it was great. We had a wonderful time seeing our friends.
Do you want this?
No.
Okay.
I need
you all.
We're here.
We're here. Here we are. We are doing a mad dash through Esther.
Yep.
One of my favorite stories.
It is wonderful.
Job.
Yikes.
I sort of feel the opposite about that as Esther. No, it's a very fascinating book, and I'm excited to talk about it. And then we're going to dip our toes into the Psalms. Just a little wade in the water, if you will. And then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
So should be fun.
So here we go with Esther. One of the, is it just two books in the Bible named for women? Esther and Ruth?
Esther and Ruth. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless Hebrews is written by a woman.
I really like Priscilla, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so we've got this story of Esther, and in our English translations, in our Protestant Bibles, I should say, Esther is grouped with all the other historical books. So, from Joshua all the way through Esther, essentially.
Yeah.
And Nehemiah. And she's grouped with them. Now, the Jewish canon groups her book with the wisdom literature.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I think, I make that point, I share that because I think it's important. Once we read the story, I think we might understand why it might not be totally historical documentation, but actually has a little bit of a deeper purpose for the book.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So the setting of Esther, though, is during the Jewish exile. They're in a Persian-dominated world. The ruling king of Persia at the time was Ahasuerus. That's what that's what Esther calls him. Probably Xerxes.
Yeah.
Xerxes one.
Number one.
Yes. And so the book was probably written 80 or so years after the time period that it represents. But we're going to dive in and see what happens.
It's a great story.
Yeah. Any other opening thoughts before we go with the story?
I have no thoughts.
Recommend. Erica showed me the VeggieTales episode on this. It was great. It was wonderful.
I want to see that.
Yeah, it was really good.
Where is my hairbrush?
Yes.
Is that the one?
Yes.
I mean, no, but that is.
I know it's VeggieTales.
VeggieTales.
Okay. So the story of Esther begins actually with a little short vignette of another woman.
Yes.
Vashanti. You'll get it, right? Do you not get that? You might
not Vanjie, but Vashanti.
What's happening?
Anyway, it's fine.
That's for the niche, the one person that listens to it that also. Anyway,
her name is Vashti.
Vashti.
Okay,
it is.
Okay.
Sorry for that.
Wow. So, another woman named Vashti, and she is the queen of Persia. She's wife of King Ahasuerus.
Yep.
And now, just a few years into his reign, the king decides to throw a massive party.
This is unlike any party nowadays. This is way bigger.
It lasts 180 days. And by my calculations, that's six months.
Yes, 6 months.
And then they drank coffee for 1 year following.
No kidding. It's just an IV.
That just sounds awful.
And so at the very end of the 6-month period, and of course, all the elite were invited.
Yes.
And they just partied and partied for 6 months. That sounds
no one's sober
terrible
for half a year.
I guess not.
I would leave.
At the very end, they have a 7-day banquet. And I guess that's just to soak it all up.
Yeah.
Protein, get some protein in there.
That's right.
Carbs, yeah. So there's a 7-day banquet. And at the same time, Queen Vashti also holds a banquet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, men and women weren't required to banquet separately, but in this case, they did.
They did.
So Vashti has her gals on her side of the palace, and Ahasuerus is with the dudes on his side. And at the banquet on the 7th day, it says the king was merry with wine.
Okay.
Which I think we can all agree is just Hebrew for he had a few too many.
Oh, what? Yeah.
I mean
6 months too many. That was good.
So anyway, so he's like, what would be really cool is if Vashti came and I could show her off. So he sends some of his men to go tell Vashti, hey, I want you to put on your royal crown and come and let me, let all these men admire you.
I'm with Vashti in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So, okay. Vashti, refuses to do this.
Dude, it's been 6 months. Let me have my time.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah,
for real.
I don't want to get dressed today. Just let me chill.
It's he's kind of giving, let's look at my smoking hot wife kind of situation.
Ew. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. We all know.
So she refuses, and in my opinion, for one of two reasons. Mm-hmm. Number one, she's like, I am with my girls, and I'm not going to leave them to come hang out with the bros.
Exactly.
Or someone where my study Bible said that when he tells her to come wearing her crown, he means come wearing only her crown.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You know
she's
what?
not going to suffer that indignity either. So she refuses, and this enrages the king enough that he divorces her, sends her away. And then just to kind of put a pin on that, he sends a decree out to every household to let them know that the men are in charge.
Okay, sir. Duh, we know what time period we're
Did he
in.
read the fine?
Also, all of history.
Yeah, exactly.
What'd you say?
Did he read in the fine print
What's in the fine print?
that it could be changed?
What could be changed?
Yeah.
The law.
The law.
Did we read this? Did I read? A reminder. I'm on an hour of sleep. But wasn't it a thing? Later on, he's like, "Oh no."
Well, yeah, he walks it back for. Well, I don't know if he walks back this law.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so now he needs a new queen. He's queenless.
Yes.
So he's like, I know, let's hold a national queen contest.
We need a beauty contest right now.
Right. That's what the world needs now. It's not love, it's beauty contest.
Exactly. Not Miss America, but Miss Israelite? I know. She would
Persia.
Miss Persia. I'm sorry.
So all the virgins are gathered up and beautified, and then they are going to be paraded before the
For
king.
6 months. Or no, 12 months. 12 months.
6 months. You're right.
Is
you're
it
right.
6 or 12?
No, you're right. It's 12 months.
A very long time.
This man knew how to objectify a woman. Let's just put it that way.
He did.
One of these virgins in the kingdom was a woman named Hadassah, or as we know her, Esther. And she is an orphan. She's been raised by her cousin Mordecai. And so, like the others, she was subjected to a year's worth of cosmetic treatment, and then she was finally brought to the king. Ahasuerus loves her more than any of the others that he saw, which I'm sure is a deep, pure, abiding, love of the soul, right?
I'm sure it's, yeah, exactly. Or it's just face value.
Oh, fair. Okay.
Yes.
So he puts his crown on her head, or a crown. He proclaims her queen, and officially now, Vashti is not queen.
She gone.
Esther, in the meantime, she doesn't reveal that her heritage is Jewish. So, around the same time, cousin Mordecai uncovered an assassination attempt on the king, and because he discovered it and reported it, it was thwarted, and those men who were going to assassinate Ahasuerus were put to death.
Yeah.
That's just like a little, this will be important later.
Yes.
So here's the problem, though. While all this is going on with Esther, Mordecai discovers that one of the king's top men, who was Haman.
Boo. We used to do that, like, when you read it, like the kids' stories,
Yes.
you would, like, praise or you do whatever, and you'd boo Haman.
For sure,
Yeah.
we can boo Haman.
I
He's
got you.
the worst. So Haman has constructed a plot to kill all the Jews. He was mad because Mordecai refused to bow down to him in public, like as was the custom.
Yes.
So he decides to kill an entire people group. That feels irrational.
Sometimes men are so fragile.
I was going to say, but sure, women are the emotional ones,
Right, exactly. Because all wars were started by women. Anyway, let me get off my soapbox.
So he goes to the king and he's like, listen, there's a group of people out there. They are trying to abolish our laws. They are trying to undermine our power.
Yeah.
And so the king is convinced, and he gives Haman permission to do whatever he wants with this people group, which is the Jews.
Yeah.
So the decree goes out. And it gives orders to destroy all the Jews, young and old, men, women, and children, in one day.
Oh,
And this
again.
is like The Purge, the movie The Purge.
Yeah, I did see it very recently.
Really?
I did.
Why?
Brooke is like obsessed with them and like loves them, and I was like, I'll watch the first one. And I
Was
was
it
like,
horrible?
it was just kind of dumb.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, this was
Sorry, Brooke.
This
I'm
was
sorry.
a dumb idea too, but it throws the city in total confusion because it's not like that. It was the next day; it was like a few months away. So they're just like, this is a bad plan.
It is. Dadgummit.
Anyway, so Mordecai
Boo.
sees.
Wait, no, yay! Oh, it's the wrong one.
Mordecai's a
Dang it.
yay.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I got you.
Okay, Mordecai
Yay.
is like, he hears this decree and he tears his clothes and he puts on sackcloth and he covers his head in ash, which is the sign of mourning. And Esther, his friends are like, Esther, your cousin's lost it. Like he's drawing some negative attention to himself.
Yes.
So she's like, sends some people over and she's like, why? Just why? And Mordecai sends Esther a copy of the decree and he's like, can you please go appeal our case to the king?
Yeah.
And Esther's like, but remember, Mordecai, you can't just approach the king if you're not summoned.
Oh.
And Mordecai's like, shh, for such a time as this,
Ooh.
Oh.
just go.
There you go.
So she's like, okay, fine. But first, you and everyone else has to fast for 3 days and 3 nights.
Okay.
And after that, I will go to the king. And then she says, maybe the most hardcore line of the whole Bible.
Okay.
If I perish, I perish.
All right. If I die, I die.
So good.
It is. It is a powerful line.
We really don't use the word perish enough
No.
in our vernacular.
I know someone named Parrish, but
I do too.
But with one
Different
R.
kind of perish.
Different kind. Yes.
Anyway, okay. So after 3 days, Esther approaches the king, and it's the moment of truth. And
Okay.
this scene is a little anticlimactic.
It is. It is.
Because the king is immediately like, here's my royal scepter. He extends the scepter, and that's a sign that he's granting permission for her to approach and speak to him. So he's like, whatever you want me to do for you, I will do. And she's like, I was just thinking about a dinner party.
Let's have one.
Yeah. Let's get one. Let's get you. Let's get me. I'm thinking Haman.
Yeah.
Boo.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Like maybe some crab cakes.
Crab cakes. We can do that. Save the Jewish people and a few other things.
Right.
Yeah.
It's no big deal.
No.
So the king is like, well, that's weird, but okay. In the meantime, Mordecai's mere presence in the city ticks Haman off again. And so he's like, my purge idea was a little short-sighted. It's
Yeah.
a little too far away. So he's like, I have a better idea. Let's build some gallows that are like 75 feet
Yes.
tall or something ridiculous.
I've heard that they call them the gallows, but it's not like the gallows we know.
Oh, what is it?
So what I've seen is it's like a big pole that's like very sharp on one end.
Oh, no.
And so they'll impale someone and then they bring it up like this. Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Just to have?
Well, to kill the people.
To kill, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's like, this is how the Jews are going to die.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like, forget the purge. I can't wait that long. We're doing the gallows.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So, meanwhile, there's a lot of meanwhiles in this story. Meanwhile, King Ahasuerus can't sleep.
Oh, no.
Do you relate?
Yes.
No melatonin for the wicked.
No, none of
As
it.
they say. So he goes back through the catalogs of history, as you would.
I mean, I guess that's what you get for partying for 6 months. Like, maybe you should have slept 6 months ago. I don't know.
Is this like doom scrolling in modern times?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
And he realizes that the man named Mordecai, who was instrumental in saving his life from the assassination attempt, had never been properly honored.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big faux pas.
Yeah.
Huge. And so the next day he calls Haman in. Haman is his right-hand man, right? And he's like, look, what should I do if I really want to honor someone?
Yeah.
And Haman
is great.
is like, obviously, it's me. He's talking
Yeah.
about me. So Haman is like, I'm just riffing here.
Not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, what if you brought all your royal robes and put them on that person, and then you brought one of the horses that you have ridden, which is a big deal,
Yeah, I guess.
for reasons,
Yeah.
and put that person on the horse, and then what if you, I don't know, like parade that person around the city square so that everyone can see them and be like,
Oh, look at him.
Anyway, and the king is like, you know what? That all sounds great. I have no notes. And
Yeah.
he's like, can you do that for Mordecai?
Nice.
Whoops.
He really wanting it for himself.
Yeah. Because you don't say no to the king.
True.
Right.
Yeah. And so, and I guess Haman's like, won't this be funny whenever he's on the gallows, which is like the spear thingy?
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't know if it's exactly what we think of as gallows or the
Something
thingy.
different.
Yes.
So, okay. Now it's time for the second banquet with Esther.
Okay.
And because at the first banquet, she was like, listen, this has been really neat. And I just was thinking we could do it again tomorrow.
Okay.
And then I will ask some questions.
Yeah.
I have some ideas, some thoughts, right? And so she's like, I have this new recipe for bacon wrapped bejeweled dates, and I just really want to try it out.
But they
on a
are.
crab.
Oh, bacon wrapped?
Oh, well, turkey bacon.
Turkey bacon wrapped.
Put some cheese on there too.
Dates are good, though. They're delicious.
Right.
For sure. So anyway, King is like, yeah, why not? And at dinner that night, Esther soft launches this idea that there's a person trying to kill her people.
What?
And herself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the king is like, how could this happen?
Oh, my
Who would
goodness.
do this? Well,
It's you, bud. Oh, Haman.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. His crony.
Yeah, his crony.
Yes.
And so Haman is like, boing.
Whoops.
And so Ahasuerus is, of course, enraged. And he's like, oh, those gallows that Haman built for the Jews? Yeah, he's going to die on those gallows.
He dug his own grave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you made your bed.
You got it. Yeah, that's right.
And so that's what happens. And then Esther and Erica. I almost said Erica.
Erica, that's what they called her. That's her nickname.
For short. Erica for short. And Esther and Mordecai are honored before the king. And then she's like, listen, can you reverse Haman's decree to kill all the Jews? Because that would probably be helpful.
That would be real nice.
Alleviating the situation.
Yeah.
So he does. He allows Esther and Mordecai to write up the notice undestroying the Jews.
Yep.
Purge canceled.
Yeah, we're not doing this anymore.
And then on top of that, we see that Esther becomes the savior of the Jews. Yeah. And so then there's this which I didn't remember this from reading it in the past. This isn't the part that's in the Vacation Bible School version of it.
Probably not. No.
Or the impaling.
Well, that too. Yeah, exactly. But there's this whole time where, like, now that Mordecai is in power, the tables have turned for the Jews. And so they have these people that have been trying to overtake them and overwhelm them. And now they are destroying their enemies. There's like lots of killing that happens.
It's 75,000 of their enemies.
Yeah.
Yeah. In self-defense.
It was in self-defense.
Should I have done this or no?
That's what people have said, because they didn't take the spoils.
Oh, okay.
They don't take the spoils from the people that kill, and so therefore this is self-defense. I think there's
Isn't that a waste, though? It's just there.
Don't hunt for game. You got to use all the parts of the animal.
Exactly. But
no, I don't like that. I don't like that analogy.
Yeah, sorry.
No. Okay, so anyway, they also hang all of Haman's sons, or like put them on the gallows.
Yeah.
And there's 10 sons, because he was a very powerful man.
I'm sure.
And so, and then the whole point of this story, at the very end, it talks about the Feast of Purim, which is inaugurated.
Yes.
And this commemorates that Esther saved the Jews.
Yeah.
And so year after year, they remember her bravery, and they remember how she pulled them from the grips of death.
And they still practice this and have a celebration every year for
Absolutely.
Purim.
Yeah.
It's like their version of Halloween. They like dress up and they have fun and they give money to different charities.
Oh, that's
and stuff.
interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
It is a party. And they say that it's a decree that we get drunk on this day for the men. Yes.
Wow.
At least for the Hasidic population that I've stalked on YouTube.
Interesting. They're like, it's not an 6-month binger.
But just today we can get
Bender.
intoxicated.
Not binger.
Bender? What did I say?
I said Bender.
Oh!
It was me. Bender is what I meant to say.
Oh,
I'm sure we'll just edit that right out.
We'll get through this. We got it.
So one thing I want to say before we move on is that, did you all know that there are people who don't think Esther should have been in the canon?
I know one of the reasons why.
Yeah. What is it?
That God is not mentioned in the whole book.
God is never mentioned in this book.
Yeah.
In fact, prayer is never mentioned in this book.
So let's just leave it out.
Yeah, and they were like,
you know what? Never mind.
The reason it got kind of pushed over the edge into inclusion in the canon was because of Purim. Because they still celebrate it.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we have to have the amazing story of how this got initiated in the first place.
But it's also like God is working within the people,
of course,
as well. It's just not mentioned.
That's exactly right. I feel like you can see, like you said, the work of God written into the story. It doesn't have to be super overt.
Okay. God's not up there going, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't like this book. Yeah. It never mentioned me.
Yeah. You take my name out of book, I take book out of the Bible.
That's right. No,
I think this is a really powerful story, and I love the figure of Esther, and frankly, Mordecai, who helped her have that foundation of bravery and steadfast courage. So
yeah, and a great name.
Mordecai.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. So now we get to move on. We are in day 115. 115 days, y'all.
Wow. This is so many.
It's just flown by.
It is.
And we're in the book of Job.
Yay.
The book of Job.
Yeah.
A bunch of groaning sounds for Job.
This is a fun book.
Yeah,
I really like this book. Although the context is kind of be like, why do you like this book? So it's like, what's neat about it is that that the landmarks that we'll read about, they're not around the time of the Israelites. So we think maybe this is a story probably, pre-Moses, because they don't talk about law, but also probably even pre-Abraham.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of cool. It's like, this is story. So then we're like, well, what does this story talk about? And so, I don't know.
It's like another creation story.
Yeah.
It is
interesting.
It's one of the most mystifying and profound texts.
Yeah.
It definitely also starts the wisdom literature in scripture. It stands apart as a universal appeal. There's so much depth and there's so much like underneath that's happening in the story of Job. I really like to look at it as kind of a parable, that it didn't literally happen, because there are some things in here that you're like, that is just bananas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it takes place in the land of Uz.
Yeah.
Or Uz.
Not Oz.
Uz,
Oh,
or
yeah,
Oz.
no.
I mean, you know.
By the way, have you seen Wicked? I'm sorry.
I did.
I have not. I have not yet.
Good.
Yeah.
So basically, in the land of Oz, it's this ambiguous land. It's symbolically rich. In mine, it says something about being beyond Israel's borders. Well, I mean, this is before Israel was even a thing, and so like it happened in a place that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good segue, Virginia, because I want to talk for a second about why the book was written. It's one of the earliest Judeo-Christian writings that we have on theodicy, which is basically just the problem of evil in the world.
Yeah.
Because from early on, humans started asking the question, if there is a God, why do people suffer? Why is there so much suffering?
And guess what?
So glad we have that.
Doesn't answer it.
So the bulk of the book, Chase, you mentioned this, is the middle of it's like a random giant poem.
Yeah.
Yes.
So some of the stuff I've read says the writings were probably they were written at a different time than the prose narrative that's at the front and the end. Couple of reasons we think this. Number one, it uses two different names for God in the two. So the prose writing talks about Yahweh, and then the poetic writing talks about Elohim, which is just God.
Interesting.
And then the language is enough different. Besides that it could have been written, it was probably edited together. And then the story was added to give meaning to some of the discussions. But it's also similar to some ancient theodicies that were around at the time. There are stories called A Man and His God. There's another one called the Babylonian Theodicy that have a similar structure and content. But this is the biggest thing for me. And this is something I did not realize or fully embrace until later on in life. But Job is written intentionally as a folk tale.
Yes.
Like it's set in that pre-patriarchal period for a reason. It's set all the way back there so that you would not start to associate it with a literal place and a literal person. It's so that you could associate Job with anybody or anything.
Yes.
It's why Uz is in there. It's not a real place. And so this is meant to be read as a parable.
Like the story of Elphaba.
Similar.
Okay.
It is not meant to be understood historically, and in fact, I think if we start thinking of this as a literal story where a literal God and a literal Satan have a deal where that same Satan can inflict emotional and physical pain on a man up to the point of his death, just to see if he breaks. If that's how we think of this story. It's actually a really irresponsible way to read this text.
Very true.
Or preach this text.
This text. So I think that this whole book is an attempt to bring understanding to a largely incomprehensible reality, which is that no matter what we do in this life, there are going to be times when good people experience real pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that being said, the story is here, and it's an important story. So let's jump in.
I mean, it starts not on Earth, but in heavenly court, where Satan or Satan or the accuser or whatever challenges Job's integrity. It says, this celestial dialogue introduced the central question of the book: can human beings serve God without expecting rewards? Interesting. And so this allows the accuser or Satan to test Job, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah. So it gives us some data about Job. Who is Job? Job was a blameless, upright, God-fearing man who turned away from evil. The point is, he's a good guy. He's one of the good ones. It says Job had 7 sons and 3 daughters.
Ooh.
Yeah, 10, 7, and 3, all God numbers.
I stuck on 7.
But 7,
and
you're
3.
right.
7 and 3.
Okay, there we
7
go.
and 3 and 10.
Okay.
No.
Those are all like
They're all like
holy
Bible
numbers. Yeah.
He has thousands of cattle, thousands of sheep, camels, and many, many, many servants.
All of the things.
Rich and
Hashtag blessed.
Yes.
And so it also tells this little short story about how Job is very deeply concerned that he and his children are right with God at all times. So, Virginia, like you said, in the heavenly realm, that's when God is holding court. It's a really interesting idea of how to think of God.
Yes.
I think that's on purpose, by the way.
Yeah.
So God is holding court with some sons of God, or like our version said, heavenly beings.
Yep.
And a part of that is that this person comes in, this character, the accuser.
It's like a docudrama.
It really is.
Yeah.
This is where we get the name Satan. But in this case, the Hebrew is Hasatan. It has an article.
Yeah.
So it's the Satan.
Oh.
And so it really is probably more accurate to understand this character as the accuser.
Yeah.
Now, the function of the accuser could be positive, could be neutral, could be negative. We'll see. So God is like, where did you come from, the Satan? And Satan's just like, oh, I'm just been going to and fro here, there, and yonder on that there earth.
He's
A
from
court TV show.
Satan is from Arkansas.
Satan.
He's from Toadsuck. Anyway.
You are from Toadsuck? We don't think you are related to Satan.
No. And God's like, did you see my guy Job? Like, look how righteous he is.
And look at all the things that he has.
And Satan's like, well, of course he's righteous. Look at these things that you've given him. His life is perfect. Like, why wouldn't he love you? And then the accuser, the Satan, is like, why don't you just try taking some of his blessings away, and then we'll see how righteous he is.
Let's just mess with him just a bit.
Just a touch.
Oh my gosh.
And God tells the accuser to do whatever he wants, but not to harm Job himself.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can make him hurt just a little bit, but not lasting effects.
Not too much. Soon after that exchange, Job receives word that all of his herds were carried off by robbers, and all of his sheep are consumed by fire from heaven, and all of his camels have been stolen, and finally, his sons and his daughters have been killed by some sort of desert tornado.
How was your day? Gosh.
Well, there was a desert tornado. Oh my goodness.
Obviously, Job is devastated. He tears his clothes in mourning, and he says this famous verse, and I want us to remember, just for fun, that this verse is quoted by a man in a deep pit of grief, and this is, but yet he says, the Lord gives and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
So that song.
Yes.
I know we do songs a lot.
hate that song.
It's like, it has a catchy, like, melodic line, but if you think about it, blessed be the name of the Lord.
He gives
then
and takes away.
But blessed be his name. It's like, wait a second.
Yeah, Job said that, not
Right?
God.
And it's such a pleasant like song we used to sing at like youth events.
Yeah, for sure. There's like hand
Yeah, now I'm like, ew.
So, but in this whole encounter, it says that Job does not sin or blame God.
Right.
Back up in heaven, God and
The heavenly beings.
yeah, they're hanging out again, shooting pool. I don't know. And the accuser comes back, and God's like, "Hey, you checked out my guy Job? He's still hanging in there.
Yeah,
being
he's
a
there.
good dude. You tried to make him hate me, but I think he loves me even more now." And Satan's like, "Well, sure. If he doesn't feel any pain personally,
Right.
Of course, he's not going to get mad." And God is like, "Fine, do with him what you will, but just, don't kill him."
Yeah.
Right.
And again, I would like to caution the readers that it might not be a good idea to take this story literally.
Right.
Have you considered my servant Job? I forgot to go like, well, what about this guy? You can mess with him. Like, it's just so twisted.
It is very twisted. So this time, the accuser strikes Job with painful sores all over his body.
Yep. Skin for skin. What it says.
Skin for skin.
It says, then Satan answered the Lord, skin for skin.
Yes.
Ew.
Yeah, yikes.
Thanks for that.
And Job gets the stick to like scratch his
Yeah.
sores with. Ugh.
Yeah,
And then
it's
he
rough.
sat among the ashes. And his wife comes out. This is the first time his wife is on the scene, by the way.
That's right.
Like,
Yeah.
He's had this whole. Anyway, she's like, listen, honey, this is not easy for me to watch. If you could just go ahead and curse God and die.
And die. That'd be real great.
Now, who was saying something about his wife earlier?
Me,
Chase.
like so we vilify like the wife in this scenario, and it's so wrong because she's also had all this stuff taken from her
Yes,
as well.
true.
And it's like all of her kids too. And I was watching a show the other week where this mother it was a sci-fi show, but this mother was watching her son get eaten by alien or something like that.
Oh, yes.
Which kind of fits.
What are you watching?
No, please keep going.
You know what? It kind of fits like Job. So anyway, get eaten by Ellen, and she's like, no, and they shut the door, and she's banging on the door trying to open the door. He's dead, and banging on the door trying to open the door. And the logic here is like, are you really going to get out there and help him? But at the same time, it's like that speaks to grief. Like when you're
That's
in that moment
true.
of grief, all logic goes out.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so her saying, you know what? Just be done with this.
Yeah.
We vilify that, and it's not right.
Yeah, I read something similar that said it's really possible that she was trying to be compassionate to him and just say, you are in so much pain. We are in pain. It's like whenever you go visit someone who's on hospice and you tell them, like, we're okay. You can go ahead and go, and their body can relax.
Yeah.
But that's not how Job takes this.
No, not at all.
So,
And then his 3 friends enter the scene, and they are some of the worst friends you could have.
they're not great.
No.
Yeah, you've got
Eliphaz.
Eliphaz, the Temanite.
Yeah, he's like, you know what? This is God's justice for you,
Feels
Job.
right to me.
This feels right.
You've got Bildad, the Shuhite.
Yeah, and he's like, you know what? Job's children probably sinned. They deserved it.
This is their fault.
Yes.
Absolutely. And then you've got Zophar, the Naamathite.
Yeah, and he's like, Job deserves this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is he made his
You're
bed.
missing something, Job. You're
Yeah.
missing something. But when they first show up, they don't even recognize him.
Yeah.
This is
That's
how bad
right.
a shape he's
Yeah.
in. And so they weep out loud and they sit with him in silence for about a week. But then they start
Are they
talking.
trying to figure out who he is?
Maybe.
Okay.
No.
Why would you be like, I don't know who this guy is? Well, might as well stay for 7 days and 7 nights.
No, they know who he is. But so, first of all, in chapter 3, Job cursed his own birth. He has this full poem about him longing for his own death. And then for the next 28 chapters after that, his friends, as you said, take turns rebuking him. They say, you've done something wrong. Or they say, Eliphaz keeps saying, but wait, can humans really be pure before God?
Yeah.
Can you really find out the deep things of God? Can you really know the limit of the Almighty? And to be honest with you, there's some compelling arguments
Yeah.
in there.
Mhm.
Like, why the fact that Job keeps insisting on his righteousness as a Protestant in the 21st century, I'm like, well, okay, all right, Job. But anyway, and so over and over, Job waffles between insisting that he is blameless, and then also teetering on the brink of despair, and then also being like, God, I know you are my redeemer, and then he'll go to like, but also, what have you done to me? I hate this and everything. So, it finally, this goes on and on. In chapter 29, Job rests his case by saying, listen, I put on righteousness and it clothed me. My justice was like a robe and a turban. In other words, he's saying, none of this is my fault. And then he finally challenges God to prove if Job has really done anything.
This is one of my favorite things.
Wrong.
God is like, you know what, Job? Let's go on a cosmic adventure
I
together.
love this.
We're just gonna come on, let's go, and then let me just show you the world.
Yeah. Right before God comes on the scene, there's this man named Elihu. It's Elihu. Oh, I just heard. And his name means God is my God. And he's the youngest of all the friends, but he's like, I've been waiting because I figured y'all would have some wisdom with all of your life experience.
Yeah.
But you're wrong. So he's mad at the friends because they accuse Job of wrongdoing, but they don't have any evidence. And then he turns to Job and he's mad at him. He rebukes him because Job has accused God of not answering his cries. I did notice there's a lot of accusations.
So much.
That has to be a thread with the accuser. So even if the accuser is not a Satan figure the way that we think of like the red horns and the devil with the...
Yes.
It makes me wonder if the accusations are part... Anyway, doesn't matter. That was just a thread I had, little thought. But Elihu says, listen, just because you don't hear God doesn't mean God isn't speaking.
Okay.
Elihu is like, God speaks in all kinds of ways. Some hear, others don't. Sometimes it's in nature. Sometimes it's through people. And he goes on to say that God's breath is in the life of every creature and every person, which I think is a little bit like the creation, this creation story that you were talking about.
Because it's like the opposite. Like creation goes from chaos to creation, but this is like opposite. It's like peace to chaos.
Right. So finally, Elihu finishes by saying, like, we're not going to be self-righteous here. What does self-righteousness accomplish? If you're righteous or you're evil, it doesn't impact God. It only impacts the people around you, which is really interesting if you think back to his wife, right? So then Elihu praises God's goodness and majesty. And finally, in chapter 38, God answers Job.
Yeah.
God steps out of a whirlwind.
Like, hey.
And he's like, who are you?
Who do you think you
He
are?
says, gird your loins, Job. In other words, like, get up and get ready for a run into a celestial...
A cosmic
kingdom.
adventure.
Yes. And God's got some sick burns along the way.
Yeah, for real.
God's like, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?
He's very sassy.
I
in
love
this.
it.
He's like, you want to micromanage?
Yeah. Well, who determined the measurements of the world? Surely you know, Job.
Yeah.
And he's like, is it by your wisdom that hawks soar or that eagles make their
my
nests so
gosh.
high? Look at the behemoth, Job. Look at the Leviathan. Was it me or was it you that made those things? I can't remember.
It was me.
Refresh my memory.
There's a lot of people that point to that and go, like, the Leviathan and what was the other one?
Behemoth.
The behemoth. Those are dinosaurs.
Right.
I've heard people say that.
Absolutely.
And they love it.
For sure.
And they're like, I bet the Loch Ness Monster was a Leviathan.
Absolutely.
Slept over.
I just think definitely God was dropping little, like, dinosaur kernels in the middle of Job.
Exactly.
He's like, I know we're talking about theodicy, but let's also go back to
dinosaurs.
Anyway.
Oh, man.
So Job is appropriately humbled at this point. And he says, I know you can do all things, God, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. And then Job repents. So I'm curious about...
Has Job done anything wrong?
I don't know,
See?
Virginia. And that's the point.
This book is like...
Yes. It's a mind warp.
Yes.
So then Job prayed for his friends because God was angry at them, as you do. And then after all of that, Job's fortunes are restored twofold. He's got more money, more rings. He's got more livestock, more herds. He's got 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. Job lived to be 140 years old, and then he died, quote, old and full of days. The end.
Yeah. Ultimately, Job invites us to trust in the mystery of God's wisdom and presence amidst life's trials.
I think, this book is this entire wandering, just meditation on the question of evil. And I think we said this already, it leaves the question unanswered.
It does.
I think it does highlight the mysteriousness of God, and yet also, I don't know. I think it's not meant to have answers. It's meant for us to feel like we're not alone in our questioning. Right?
This resolution underscores the theme of restoration, but leaves open the questions about the nature of justice and suffering. Ugh. Job is complex, and there's so many questions.
As Gary Muller would say, it's complexicated.
Did he say that?
You don't.
No.
Did that predate y'all being?
Maybe.
Oh man.
When did he say complexicated?
Oh, he invented a word. He called it complexicated.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Shout out Bishop Muller. Okay. Any other thoughts on Job?
Yeah. So I was in Bigelow for a while working with the church, and there was a family there that had a son who had some different health problems and had to go back and forth between Houston, and they lost a lot, everything. And they actually were on the Arkansas, the house show that when the people got together to build.
Oh, like Extreme Makeover?
Extreme Makeover. And they were blessed with that. They bought the land house and the community came together and then worked. So me and my dad went down there and worked. And then I got to hear later a little bit more of their testimony. We kind of all went to church together. And the mother got up to kind of speak, and she said, one of the things that I ask all the time is, why did I name my son what I named my son? Because his name was Job.
Oh,
and she was like, is it in a name that caused all these trials? And then she goes back. She says, no, this is just an ancient story. She said, but what we found is that there's hope in times of uncertainty. And so, I don't know, for me, it's kind of like, I look back to her story and this story, and it's like, it's unanswered questions, but the reality is we all deal with suffering.
Yeah.
And so how do we address that?
And we're not alone.
Right. And sometimes we have terrible friends.
Maybe they were well-meaning.
Maybe they were
Maybe it's
well-meaning.
a reminder that when people are suffering and struggling, that we don't share our wisdom, but rather we just sit with them in the silence.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so easy to say some bad, like the wrong things. You're like, why did I say that? Or why did it come across that way?
Or people say things that they think are the right thing, and they're not. They're really harmful.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great answer to or I should say rebuttal to the idea that everything happens for a reason.
I don't like that phrase.
I don't either.
Yeah.
But I think also this says, like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Yeah.
So.
And if you have moments when you're like facing this, or somebody's facing this, you're like, how do I pray in moments like this?
Yeah.
I go to the Psalms.
That's good.
Hashtag segue.
That's a great segue. Look at us.
Segue. That is true. So we're going to be covering the Psalms for the next couple of weeks. And one of the things I was looking at was all the different types of Psalms that are available. Remember, the Psalms are the songs of ancient Israel. But the largest category of songs are laments or songs of help.
Yes.
And I think that is so appropriate, heading from both the stories of Esther and Job into this book. And I heard this phrase in seminary. It's been attributed to St. Augustine, but that may be just one of those things where they attribute it to somebody. But the phrase is, to sing is to pray twice. And it's this idea that when we sing songs to God, they are offered up as prayers. I think that definitely is true. Okay. So the second category is song of thanks. Then you've got hymns, which are similar to songs of thanks, but more maybe theological in nature.
Sure.
They tell a story of something. And then you've got your royal psalms, which are songs about a king, which I think is interesting.
And David is attributed to writing many of these, right?
Yes. They were written over a broad period of time. Some of them use like earlier Hebrew and diction, and some are obviously later additions. Also, you can tell by the stories that they are attached to. And then, of course, David is the attributed author of some of our Psalms, but there's no way he could have written them all because
right.
So. And then some of them are connected to like ancient Israel stories, like Psalm, I think it's 88, is like the people of Kohath, which is all the way back in Moses' time.
Yes.
So, but Psalm 1, I had to memorize Psalm 1 back in elementary school. And, right.
No, agreed. I was just reading this one. I'm like, this is not the one I remember. I did the KJV.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Blessed are those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, nor walk the path of sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers, but their delight is in the law of the Lord, and on that law they meditate day and night. They are like trees planted by streams of water. And that's really where I trail off. I don't remember from that. But anyway, it's a beautiful psalm. It's a great one to begin with. It's got this like nature forward feeling about it. It reminds us from the get-go that we have to bury our roots and find our source of life in nothing and no one else but God and God's law. And I think it's an appropriate first hymn for the book. And then I wondered, we talked about the song that came from Job. How many of our songs that we sing now are, psalms?
Probably quite a few.
So as we read, I want us to keep that in mind, right? So a couple of notes of housekeeping. We have several times when you're reading, you'll see the word Selah.
Shayla?
Selah.
Oh, no.
Selah.
We did sing a song when I was in high school that was like, Selah, and then it was like guitar solo.
Oh,
it
yes.
was very terrible. So we don't know exactly what Selah means. People speculate that it's a musical direction. You're either supposed to change keys or pause and reflect on what you've just sung or repeat it, or we don't know, but it's probably for a practical reason. And then there's also some of the songs have instructions that say to the leader.
That's right.
And that's probably like literally to the choral director, the music leader,
and it's
the
like,
one who's leading the singing.
Who's leading the flutes? Chapter 5's for you.
Yeah. Exactly. So just as you read along, know that. And then, we're on day 122. Here there's a psalm for everything.
That's true.
There is, if you want to go to Psalm 5, you can have a psalm for your enemies. It's a real passive-aggressive song.
Oh, yeah. Goodness.
If you want to go to Psalm 6, you have a psalm for someone recovering from a grave illness. Very handy. Yeah. Pastoral care. If you skip on down to Psalm 9 and 10, I thought this was interesting. It's probably meant to be one song. I don't know why they broke it up.
Okay.
There's a couple of reasons why they believe this to be true. The first is that it ends with Selah in chapter 9, and in no other part of the hymn book does any other song end with that. That wouldn't make sense.
Okay,
so there's that. It's kind of a cue that keep on reading.
Yeah.
Then if you put 9 and 10 together, it makes a loose acrostic, which means that every so often it begins with the next letter of the Hebrew alphabet.
I just got seminary flashbacks when you said that word. I was like, oh, geez.
It's acrostic pattern. Yeah. So, and so that's interesting, or maybe not. I don't know. There you go. That's information for you. When you go to Psalm 13, this is one of my favorite scriptures to quote.
I hear this often.
Yeah. How long, O Lord?
You don't say it like that though. It's like usually our offices are across from each other, and so it's usually like, how long, oh Lord? I'm like, what's going on? I'm just playing. That's me.
Did you? How he just imitated my voice?
It was how long? No, it was horrible because the doors were shut.
Oh yeah. I do love to say that though.
Oh,
and it goes on to say, like, how long will you forsake me? How long will these terrible things happen? And then I just want to skip on down to day 126, Psalm 22. This is begins with, my God, why have you forsaken me?
Yes.
Oh, this sounds familiar. Why?
This is, David is lamenting. Wait, what? No, what?
My God.
Oh, it's from Job.
Oh, it's from the cross.
Jesus.
My God. Why am I leaving? And then we blow out the candle.
Yeah.
Of course it is. Good gravy.
Guess what Virginia's reading next year during Good Friday service?
Sometimes my hair color shows. Okay.
But no, to be honest, it's repetitive, right?
Yes.
Right? So,
but Jesus is quoting Psalm 22,
yes.
And I love this because if whoever was there listening, if they knew Psalm 22, they would have known that it goes on to say, I am poured out like water, all my bones are out of joint, my heart is like wax melting within my chest, and then it closes by saying, dominion belongs to the Lord. What an amazing, people have taken that one sentence and said Jesus is really asking if God has forsaken him, and I think Jesus is singing a song.
Yeah.
Well, and the fact that people are like, you can't question anything in here. Like, you don't question, you just whatever. And Jesus literally questioned on the cross.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And love that. And then Psalm 22, after my God, why have you forsaken me? We go to Psalm 23, which I do love this psalm.
I do too.
You know, it's very familiar. It's very common, and yet there's a reason for that. I think there's this really comforting image of God as shepherd, who protects us.
Because we are sheep and we are dumb at times.
Well, we just need guidance.
We do.
And then, you know, there's the whole part about, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Do y'all remember this from the Israel trip?
Yes.
Chase, do you want to share that?
Yeah.
Was the there?
I do remember this. Yeah.
We were, I don't know if y'all know this, but we went to Israel together.
Oh, we did. Yeah, we
the
did.
Holy Land.
What?
I'm not talking to you all. I'm talking to
I know.
friends.
I know.
What?
So there's this mountain range, and so it's like, it's really rough, and it's of course a valley because it's mountain range. But that was the trek where the sheep would go.
Yeah,
right?
And they would herd in. How many did you say? How many sheep did they bring in for the Passover?
It's like 140,000.
Yes,
It was too, insane amount. Yeah.
And all these sheep are marched through this valley to their death at the temple.
Yeah.
And so that is very likely what the psalmist was referencing. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff comfort me.
Yeah.
Is that when we went to that place and we sat down and it was like the starting of, because it was a valley?
We did. That was the one place.
Okay.
And then I think we went to the, closer to Jerusalem and saw where they would have come
That's right.
into the city.
Yes.
Yes.
This psalm is special to me, and it's always been special. Of course, I memorized it, KJV, King James Version, and it's that Old English. But for me, like in this particular one, it's so beautifully written in that old language, and we make jokes about like we had to memorize things, but at the same time, it's really important that you do know some scripture because it's good to have that in your heart.
Yeah.
In your heart.
Absolutely.
We the last church that I served, we were visiting a parishioner who was very sick and near the end of life, and she asked us to read the psalm with her in her house. And the Bible that we had was the different version, an RSV or NIV or an LV, and we began to read the version that we had. And she began to speak it and pray it by memory. And we weren't able to finish it. I mean, we were just bawling as she was praying these words. And to me, it was like the importance of this psalm and the reality that she was facing was and she had this etched in her heart. It just is such a promise and such a humble and joyful moment as well.
Yeah.
So.
I read this often for funerals, and we do read it in the KJV version, and it really, I don't normally like King James.
Right.
It's not relatable to me, but this one's pretty beautiful.
Yes.
The last psalm in this section is Psalm 24, and it begins with, the earth is the Lord's and all that is in it. And then it goes on to say, who is the King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty. And then I remembered that in 1994-ish, I sang this song in the Don't Be Afraid Brigade production.
What
at
is
my
this?
Church.
Yeah.
And I like the song popped into my head.
Don't be afraid, brigade.
I'm stuck on that.
Who is the King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty. Who is the King of glory? The Lord invincible. Lift up your heads, O gates. Lift up your ancient swords, that the King of glory may come in. That's
Hey Scott, I have an answer for this week. It's going to be great.
It began like this. So you're an angel.
But yeah, it's an entrance into the sanctuary.
And it began like this. We've got to hearse and rehearse to get it right. Repeat and repeat what to say for Joyce. And rejoice is what we'll do to celebrate
Joyce?
Christmas Day. My aunt.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Anyway, that's it, y'all. We can just end on that high
That
note.
was really
You're
cool.
welcome.
Yeah, I have
Isn't that
never
really cool?
I had never heard that jam.
Yeah. The jam.
You obviously weren't in a United Methodist church in 1994. No, you weren't, because you were were you born then?
I was 5. I would going to turn 6 that year.
Oh,
5,
okay,
6.
that's right. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, fair.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. I'm excited about what's happening here.
I don't know what's happening.
I don't either. I'm done. We're going to close it out. I think that these, actually, all three of these sections that we've read today have been important.
So different.
Very different.
Yeah.
And yet really related.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my favorite thing about this Bible journey so far is that I'm realizing how stinking related all the things are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And interwoven. And there's a lot of throwbacks and references. And I think it actually makes it more meaningful.
I love a throwback. Even though I get it wrong sometimes when they ask me.
Well, or just alternatively right. So, yeah. I mean, we were looking for like the Jesus, like the Sunday school Jesus answer.
Yes. And I was trying to.
Well, Elijah in the wilderness.
Try. You got this.
Oh, Jesus. Yes.
God.
Anyway,
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We're going to be back next week, and then we're going to take a break for a few weeks through the holidays. But these stories have not been easy. Some might say they are complicated.
Yeah.
Or even complexicated.
Yes. Complexicated. Yes.
But one thing that is never complicated is that Jesus loves you. And we do too. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.